Nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw that Myles Turner. They're out of moves now. They waived Damian Lillard. This was $113 million, and that seems like a no-brainer. One game away from winning an NBA championship, and you break up the roster. So let's talk about some of the moves that happened because there were some big-time things. So first, let's start with the Bucks because they made some groundbreaking, I guess if you want to say, moves today. So if you didn't see, or if you didn't know, obviously we know Giannis is monitoring, the moves they make this offseason. And so far, they pretty much just re-signed the people they had and lost Brook Lopez. So at that moment, last night, they didn't get any better because they obviously re-signed the people who were on the team last year, which is important. But they lost Brook Lopez, so that's a loss. And they still weren't going to have Dame. And a lot of people, if not pretty much everybody, thought they were not a championship contender. Well, guess what they did today? See, the thing about the Bucks is they had, and still have in a way, but they had no room to make any kind of moves. They had no money, literally no money to make any kind of moves, unless you somehow traded, Damian Lillard, but we'll talk about how that went down. So they had no money to make moves. They had no picks. They used up all their picks in all these trades when they tried to get, or when they got Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard, all these things. So they were there was no path for them to upgrade this roster, significantly. So what did they do today? Well, guess what? They waived Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard had $113 million left on his contract. Did you know that's the largest waiver in NBA history? There has not been a larger player being waived, or rather the player who had the largest contract who was waived was $31 million. This was $113 million, and the Bucks are going to pay him over the next 5 years. On their salary cap for the next 5 years, you will see Damian Lillard $22.5 million for 5 years. That is crazy. So in addition to that, and the reason that they did that, of course, is because I just told you they had no picks, no financial flexibility, all that kind of stuff. So what they did is they went out and got Myles Turner, a 4-year, $107 million deal, which is really breaking news for multiple reasons, which I'll obviously talk about. First of all, for the Bucks, this is obviously just Myles Turner by himself, in a vacuum. That's a great pickup for them because they lost Brook Lopez, and Myles Turner does some similar things to Brook Lopez. I would say Brook does some things better than him, and I would say Myles does something better than Brook. But regardless, they're getting a center in their prime who has shown his value around the league. So, it's a reasonable contract for Myles Turner, and I don't think it's anything to look at and be like, that was a bad contract. I think, like I said, that was a good deal for the Bucks, just in a vacuum. In the full picture, though, and again, this has nothing to do with Myles Turner, of course, because, again, he is someone who will make the team better. But number one, do we think this team is a championship contender? Because they're out of moves now. There's no possibility to make any more moves. Unless, again, you're trading Giannis. But, the whole point is to keep Giannis. So there's no more, that was their, final big move that they can make, so to speak. And nobody even thought that was even, a thing. Nobody thought that was ever going to happen. So that was quite a maneuver for the Bucks. I will give them credit, and I will say this about the Bucks. The one thing about the Bucks is they have been very committed to Giannis, and every time that Giannis wants an upgrade on the roster or some kind of something done or something like that, they have doubled down and put all their chips on the table and done it for Giannis. And the Bucks are, quote unquote, a small market. It's not like we're talking about LA, who attracts all the stars, maybe not now, but back in the days, they attracted LeBron too, even still, back in 2019 or whatever. So we're talking about the Bucks. And this ownership, although I believe it's a new ownership now, since 2022 maybe, but regardless, the ownership, whatever, prior to the selling of the team and then now, they've always been committed to Giannis. They do whatever it takes. They'll pay whatever price they have to pay. And so I commend them for that. A lot of teams would not do that. I really commend them for that. Because a lot of teams would not do that for their stars necessarily. Like, you talk about a LeBron in his prime, Steph Curry in his prime, you do that for. But like a lot of the, stars in the league would not get that. We'll talk about, the opposite. Tyrese Halliburton didn't get that treatment for Myles Turner. So first, I want to give the Bucks organization credit. Like, they have tried everything. They have exhausted every option. I thought they already exhausted every option, and they just found another way, to just do something. Again, do we think this team is a championship contender, or is it going to be by the end of the summer? I don't think so. I think the writing is on the wall, and I think it's inevitable that this team is probably not going to win the finals, let alone get there. Obviously, you can never count Giannis out, but still, I wouldn't put my money on that, right? But like I said, I credit the organization for always trying. If Giannis wants to stay in Milwaukee and be a Buck for life, like, that's his choice. If that's what he thinks is best for him, like, we understand, his loyalty and him wanting to be there forever and stuff like that. So, fair enough. Like, no one is going to crucify him if he stays. But if he wants to win more championships, there's really nothing else they can do. Like, they have done everything they could. They really can't do anything else to change the roster. So I feel like it's at a, breaking point, so to speak. Like, it's either Giannis just stays and kind of accepts not potentially winning any more championships, or if he really wants to win, I feel like he has to leave. And I know this is something he wants to hear, and not that he's watching this, but like I said, the writing is on the wall. Like, there really is nothing else they can do. They literally have put $22 million, as I just said before, on their books for the next 5 years. So starting out, even if they have nobody on their roster, they will immediately have $22 million from Damian Lillard every single year for the next 5 years, just to, try to make Giannis happy and try to upgrade the roster. So if he wants to stay, that's fine. But I think a lot of us believe, like, if he wants to win another ring, it can't be with the Bucks. It just doesn't seem like it's possible. But I mean, we could be wrong. But so I don't know if we're coming to a point where Giannis is going to ask out. Nobody knows. Like I said, we know he's very loyal and wants to stay, but that remains to be seen. But honestly, nobody saw that coming. Nobody saw that Myles Turner thing coming. Not me. Because Myles Turner said it himself. He wanted to stay in Indiana. Now I'm going to get to how other teams don't necessarily appease their stars the same way. And, there are other reasons for that. It's not necessarily the star, themselves. But, like, the point is, we go to the other side, and the Pacers, Myles Turner, I always felt bad for him because he was on the trading block for years, every single year, and then he was never traded. And then finally, they were like, oh, I guess he is really that good. I mean, I'm, like, making a joke out of it, but, like, finally, he was off the trading block, and it was his time to get paid, and he showed his value to the organization. And what happened? They lowballed him. They lowballed Myles Turner. And let me tell you something. I don't know what the offer was, but it was not obviously the same offer that Milwaukee, gave him. And the reports were that he felt like he was lowballed. And can I just tell you something for a second? The offer that the Bucks gave Myles Turner, again, is not unreasonable at all. I don't think it's anything like I don't think he would be eligible for this, obviously, but like if the Bucks gave him like $250 million, again, he's not eligible for that, but like I don't think so, at least, then I could understand them being like, well, we can't pay that, right? If you break down the contract that the Bucks gave him, 4-year, 107, that breaks down to about $26 million per year, approximately. Now, how salaries usually work is that they go up every year. So his starting salary wouldn't be 26. It would probably be like, I don't know, maybe 22, 23 maybe. Sometimes it's a little more even. Sometimes it's like bigger jumps in between, I guess, depending on how much, the player is getting. And sometimes it can decrescendo. Like some players can have their first year of their contract be the most and then go down. I don't think that's what the Bucks would want. I think they would want it ascending. I mean, not the Bucks, the Pacers. But let me tell you why this is significant and why it does not make any sense. Even if the Pacers gave Myles Turner that 4-year, $107 million contract, they are not in the second apron. They are not even in the first apron. The only penalty they had to pay was a slight luxury tax. And I don't know approximately how much it comes out to monetarily wise. So when I say slight, it, obviously millions of dollars add up, and I'm not, an owner and stuff like that. So I get it. Like, money is money. But they were not in any of the aprons. Like, this was not a salary that was like putting them over the edge and stuff like that. They were not going to have any restrictions. They were barely in the luxury tax with Myles Turner, because if you add that money and you do the approximate 26 million, it puts them at 193. The first apron is 196, 195. So they're not in any of the aprons. So already it should be a no-brainer, because they're not getting any restrictions by signing Myles Turner. No restrictions. So that's number one. But even if you take it down a little bit, like I said, you do an ascending contract, and let's say his first year, he earns 22, whatever, just play with me here. The Pacers salary cap is at 167 for next year. So 167 plus 22 is what, 189? The luxury tax is at 185. Like, again, I don't know how much that actually monetarily translates to, but like, that seems like a no-brainer to any organization, in my opinion. Like, I'm baffled. Like, for the Celtics, I feel like it was a completely different situation. The Celtics, well, first of all, they won a championship with that core, but they were like in the second apron. They had like $400 million on their books or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, 400 million might be exaggerating, but I think with the luxury tax, it was up there and stuff like that. So they owed a ton of money, and they were really strapped. And obviously Jason Tatum getting hurt and stuff like that, made them have to make some kind of move. So like, we understood from the Celtics perspective, although I didn't like them treating Jrue Holiday, but like, that kind of makes sense. How does it make sense to lowball Myles Turner? Again, you're not going to be restricted to any aprons or any kind of restrictions. All you have to do is pay the luxury tax. And again, it's not my money. I'm not the one, owning the team for millions of dollars. I get it. But like, you just went to the NBA Finals. Tyrese Halliburton is, of course, hurt this year, right? But like, most people expect, not next year, but the year after when he comes back, that team was going to be a contender again. And maybe you can even add a couple of free agents. And they had gotten their pick back, which I had mentioned in a video previously. They had gotten their pick back for next year for the draft. So it's a 2026 unprotected pick, which is their pick. So if they were bad this year and, we're at the bottom of the conference, they were going to have a top lottery pick. So they could either draft somebody or they could use that and package it with someone and get somebody else. So like, I don't get it. It makes